Welcome everyone to another episode of the Black Beauty Activist Podcast. I am Dr. Tameka Ellington, your host. For those people that don't know me, I am an author, designer, researcher, educator, and a lover of all things Black history and culture. And today we're going to be talking about some Black history. We're going to be talking about some culture. We're going to be talking about telling stories, one of my favorite things to do. As an artist, I believe that it's critically important that in all the artwork that we do, we tell stories. Most of you all might know that I'm a fashion designer, a fashion scholar, and I tell stories through my design work. I'm also a curator, and I tell stories in the curation process. And so we are going to have a good time today. The person that we have on is an amazing woman. I just found out some great things about her, and we're going to have a great conversation. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this intro started. We all tell stories. We all have stories to tell, whether we tell stories, whether we tell those stories or not will dictate oftentimes how we've healed from those stories. If you watched my last episode, I had a good friend of mine on. Her name is Dr. Afia Mbilashaka. And one of the things that Dr. Afia said that stuck out to me in the last episode was she said, "What we don't talk out, we act out." That stuck to me because as a speaker, as an empowerment coach, as someone who has now dedicated her life to empowering and motivating people, one of the things that I do is tell my life story. I talk about the things that I've gone through, how I've been able to get over those things and move beyond those things so that I can be the person that you see today. But a lot of times people have a hard time talking about their story. And I truly believe that if you can't talk about it, then you obviously have not moved on from it. Stories can definitely be something that is a true life story. It could be your own personal story. It can be fictionalized stories. We also have stories, especially in the African American community. We have what we call folk tales or folklore that are traditional stories that have gone down from generation to generation. And the person that we have on today is Miss Beverly Lloyd. She is a member of the Cleveland Association for Black Storytellers. And I'm going to go ahead and bring her onto the stage right now. Okay, Miss Beverly, how are you today? Can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you. Let me see. Okay, you're muted. Let me unmute you. Okay. For some reason, I can't hear you, Miss Beverly. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, I'm going to take you out of the studio and then I'll have you come back in, okay? I'm not sure what happened. We were good in the beginning. I'm going to take you right out and then I'll have you, and please, once you come out, just come on right back in and then people should be able to hear you, okay? Okay, so while we're waiting on Miss Beverly to come back, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is how stories are critically important to our history, how they're critically important to us growing as a community. Oftentimes, when we tell stories, it becomes a way for us to connect with one another. And I'm really hoping that Miss Bev can come back on so she can talk with us about her experiences. And we're actually going to end the episode with Miss Beverly telling us a story. So her voice, her words will be the last that you'll hear on this episode of the Black Beauty Activist Podcast. And one thing I will also say too, I'm super excited. I just got a notification from the streaming service that I use for the podcast, which is Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout allows me to be able to take the podcast, and it now is funneled through Spotify. It's funneled through Apple Podcasts, and other people around the world get to listen to the podcast from those platforms. But I just found out that now I'm 25 episodes deep into the Black Beauty Activist Podcast, which is amazing. And I just want to thank everybody who's been watching and listening since I got started. This whole experience, starting the Black Beauty Activist podcast, could have only come about from a conversation that I had with a mentor of mine. My mentor, and actually, I think I told this story to you all before. My mentor, she told me that I was in the whale, meaning that I was Jonah in the whale, that I was in the whale. I was hiding from what I was supposed to really be doing, and I was running away from what I was supposed to be doing. And if I would just step into my authenticity and get out of the whale and start showing up the way that I'm supposed to show up, beautiful things will start to unfold for me. And after I had that conversation with her, that's how the Black Beauty Activist podcast came to be. So there's always a story behind a story, right? There's a story that envelops our lives and a story that takes us on a different trajectory than we ever would have thought. If it had not been for my mentor, I would have never started the Black Beauty Activist podcast. And like I said, we're 25 episodes in deep, and it's been an amazing experience so far, and I'm just loving it. And so I'm happy to say that Miss Bev is back on with us. Hello. How are you? We can hear you.
Great.
Yes, absolutely. So Miss Bev, would you like me to call you Miss Bev or Miss Lloyd? What do people call you?
They call me Mama Awan or Bev.
Mama Awan or Bev. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Mama Awan. And what I didn't realize was that we were already acquainted.
Right.
Yes.
We are acquainted.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, already. So Mama Awan actually saw the exhibition that I curated for the Kent State University Museum, Textures, the History and Art of Black Hair. And so Mama Awan, can you talk a little bit about your experience going to Textures?
Oh my goodness. At first I thought, well, I know everything about Black hair. I don't need to go. But some girlfriends and we have Girlfriends Day, and we decided to go. I was blown away by the exhibit, especially I guess it's a statue of, is it Sojourner Truth or Harriet Tubman?
Mm-hmm.
And the braids are coming in all directions.
Yes, that was Madam C.J. Walker.
Madam C.J. Walker.
Yes.
The braids are coming in every direction of the world. And I was just inspired to write a poem about our resilience, about our journey, and about our love. I would love to share that later.
Please.
It was absolutely just what you're talking about. Everybody has a story, and that exhibit told a story. That's a very important part of the story of our lives. Our hair, it still is.
Absolutely.
Very important part of our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I truly believe that as artists, we tell stories through our artwork. No matter what kind of artist you are, whether you're a poet or if you're a dancer or a painter or a curator or an author. Authors are also artists as well. I truly believe that. And we're all telling stories in some way.
Absolutely.
So Ms. Bev, tell us a little bit about you. How did you grow up? Are you from Cleveland?
I actually am from Akron.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I grew up in Vidalia, Georgia, and then Akron. I spent a lot of summers in Georgia. So I always like to say my roots are in Georgia, and I'm a Georgia peach. I grew up on a little street called Bellows in Akron, and heard stories just all around me from uncles and aunts and people on the street. And when I actually grew up, I don't want to date myself, people still came down the street yelling watermelon and peanuts, that type of thing. It was, and you stopped. And when I was a little girl going to the store, I would stop at about maybe 4 or 5 different houses on the way to the store and say, Miss Johnson, do you need anything? Yeah, I need some bread. Mr. Thomas, do you need anything? Yeah, I need some cigarettes. Well, I couldn't get cigarettes, but
right.
they tell me different things that they would need. I would come back and bring everything to everybody and memorize it. And I might come home with 7 cents. That's
Mm.
exciting. You could do a lot with 7 cents at that time.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So what got you started into storytelling? So you were talking about the stories were all around you, but what was it in you that really got you excited about wanting to be a storyteller and wanting to inspire others through storytelling?
I'm going to actually have to say it really was in me. My father just really inspired me. He would get peanuts from Vidalia from his mom, and he'd roast those peanuts and he'd tell us all kinds of funny stories about his childhood in Georgia.
Mm.
I'm sure that that's what inspired me to tell stories. And when people and I would interact, I would always, they would say I was a liar. They would call me a liar
Mm.
because they said, well, why did you make that up? You couldn't just say you went to the store. You had to say the dog came and tried to, why did you make that part up? I said, I don't know. It just sounded like it should go in there. So I said, and I realized, when I was maybe in my 20s, no, I'm not a liar. I'm a storyteller.
Mm.
And
Yes.
when you were young, you telling a story. Yeah, I am telling a
Yes. 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 Wow. Wow. What does storytelling mean to you?
story. It means that we're here. I would think about the second version of The Color Purple, which
Mm.
said, I may be black, I may be ugly, and I may be poor, but I'm still
You're
here.
here. Absolutely.
And storytelling to me means we're still here. We're
Mm.
here. We can't be here without our stories.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. It keeps us here.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps us
Mm-hmm.
here. Absolutely. What's the most important goal that the Cleveland Association for Black Storytellers has as an organization? What's the goal for the org?
The goal for the organization is to build the community through the stories, to weave us together, tie us together, let us know that rich, poor, black, white, we're all connected with these stories. And we have such a plethora of storytellers and types of stories. And again, and if you want to get a taste of it, come to our storytelling luncheon on June 8th. We'll tell you a little bit more about
Yeah.
that later.
Yeah.
But that's our goal, is to maintain the threads and the strength and the resilience of our community.
Mm. How did the org start? Who started the organization and how did it start?
Well, two women, Barbara Eady and Wanda Owens, started the organization. And I came aboard, I want to say maybe a year or two after they started. The two of them started this organization, and it's been going strong for 23 years.
Wow. So you've been a part of it for almost like about 20 years?
I actually joined about 20 years ago. And then when I had children, I was kind of inactive, but then I came
Mhm.
back. But I've been a part since about the third year. Mhm.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Why is it important that we tell stories? You talked about it keeps us here, but why really, if say for instance, if one day stories were taken away from us, what do you think we would lose?
Hmm. Well, I think we would lose love, laughter, and purpose.
Mm.
I think stories give us love, they give us laughter, they give us purpose. When you get together with your friends, your family, the first thing you'll do is say, remember when? Do you
Yep.
remember when
Uh-huh.
your girlfriends? And if you didn't have those stories, you know, it wouldn't be the same. You wouldn't,
Yeah. 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 They
wouldn't have
definitely,
purpose.
yeah. Yeah, they definitely connect us for sure. How does storytelling impact our overall community? What I mean by that is thinking about young people and young people coming up and continuing to tell these stories. How do you believe that it impacts our young people?
Well, again, I'm going to use that word purpose. And I think there's so many of our young people really need a purpose. They really need a vision. And storytelling can help them get a vision. If they find out that there's heroes and sheroes that did this and did that, then they're going to say, I can do it too.
Yeah.
But when you don't hear your story, if you're in somebody else's story, it just makes all the difference in the world when you can see yourself, in the center of the story.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys train up storytellers? So, say for instance, if there was someone who came, wanted to become a part of the organization, but they didn't know how to tell stories, do you guys help people learn how to tell stories?
We absolutely do. We had 3 days of storytelling workshops just a couple months ago. And we do that at least once or twice a year where we do train up young storytellers or people who've never told a story. And it's just amazing what will happen. It's amazing. People will say, well, I didn't think I had any stories, or I didn't know I could tell a story. And then we're like, that was the best story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How are stories then connected to, say, when we think about theater? How are stories connected with theater?
Oh, I mean, they are the same.
Yeah.
Theater, story, they are the same. Stories are theater. Theater is stories. Those two things are synonymous. Every thing that you've seen on Broadway or in the movies is a story,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, somebody had a problem, they had to solve the problem. How did they solve the problem? There's a million different ways the problem could be solved. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what human beings are all about, really. In your life, every day, you're solving a problem,
Mm.
you're making some decisions, and that's your story. That's going to decide what the ending is going to be, of your story. You know,
Wow. Yeah. You all have some events coming up. The Cleveland Black Storytellers, the Cleveland Association of Black Storytellers. You all have some events coming up. On June 8th, you all have a luncheon coming up. Can you talk a little bit about the luncheon?
absolutely. We have an annual luncheon every year since our inception, except for during COVID. And that luncheon, it's mostly sisters, but we do invite the brothers as well. And we call it our sisterhood luncheon. Um, and we get together. We have a great meal. We have wonderful vendors out of this world from all over the place, selling everything you could think of, all African
Mm,
shoes, clothes, jewelry, everything. And we then tell stories.
nice.
And it's really like a family time. It
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And you guys do it every year? You
We
all
do
do
it
it?
every year. This year is June 8th. We do have a few tickets left. I'm going to say this. If you're listening, you can call Jackie at 216-526-1275 and still get tickets if you would like to.
Nice. Very nice. And then you all have an event coming up on Juneteenth. So we all know that. And part of the reason why we're having this episode with the Black Storytellers is because uh, as we, step into the essence of what we now know of as Juneteenth, because many of us for many years didn't even know Juneteenth existed. And now that we know Juneteenth exists, it's our responsibility to keep that going, to continue to tell those stories. And I know you all also have an event coming up for Juneteenth. Can you talk to us about that one?
Absolutely. This is near and dear to my heart. The Association of African American Cultural Gardens, which is on Martin Luther King Boulevard, we partner with the storytellers every year. Now, we have been hosting a Juneteenth for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And we really strive to weave our history, into our everyday culture. And on June 19th, on the very day that Juneteenth is celebrated, June 19th, you can come on down to the garden. We will have reenactments by our young people. We always
Wow.
get the young people involved. The Cleveland Cavaliers sponsors the talent show.
Oh, wow.
We will have the Grand March with the Frank Ross. We will
Nice.
have absolute drumming and dancing. We will discuss what is the significance of the red food that is celebrated, particularly in Texas and in the South on Juneteenth celebration.
Wow.
We always believe, yes, we have fun, we have a children's village, all kinds of great food, but we also want to educate people so that they come away from our celebration knowing a little bit more about their history and their culture.
Wow. And the fact that you all have been doing it for 20 years, that's amazing. That's
Before it
amazing.
was even popular.
Wow. Um, you know, in your opinion, even though we knew that there was some history there, why do you think it took us so long for us to really begin to celebrate Juneteenth? Like, I mean, we weren't waiting for the government to tell us that it was okay. Why, as Black people, why do you think it took us so long?
I I want to be very careful when I answer
Yes.
this. I know that we as a people, when I was young, we didn't talk about slavery. We didn't talk about those terrible times. We just hushed it up. And in order to celebrate Juneteenth, we have to go back and talk about why we had Juneteenth. And
Hmm.
we, as a people, we really don't like to talk about that. I think that we should really be so proud of what we've come from. It was a horrible time, yes, but we're still standing and we're here. And and we've overcome, and we need to concentrate on those heroes, those sheroes, those stories of resilience, and let our community know we fought for this freedom. Certainly people helped, but nobody gave it to us. Nobody gave it to us. We fought for freedom. So I think it's because we just kind of, that was a hush hush subject, and there's so many of us. If you as a teacher, I ask young people, do you know what day Africans became free? They don't know what day we became free. Many of us think when we celebrate the 4th of July that we were free. We weren't free then.
Wow.
On the 4th of July, we were still being beaten, picking cotton, tobacco. We weren't free. And
Mm.
we grew up kind of just, again, as I mentioned, we lived somebody else's story for the most part. Now it is time for us to tell our story.
Mm.
Hmm.
Ever since Juneteenth has been brought to the surface and now is a national holiday, I myself have had a very difficult time celebrating the 4th of July like I normally would. I just don't feel comfortable doing it anymore. Um,
Right.
and I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, how you've seen this new surgence of Juneteenth, how it's impacted us in regards to the 4th of July. Um, what are your thoughts about that, Miss
Uh,
Bev?
Absolutely. Right now, I could walk around and show you in my front yard. I'm flying the Juneteenth flag. It was there
Yeah.
all year through the winter, the snow. Um, it's been a while because, like I said, we've been celebrating 20 years. But I would tell my children, my family, this is a day we can have some barbecue and all, but just remember, we weren't free this day. So
Hmm.
we are not celebrating our freedom, uh, you know, and that's one of the things that I think would heal America.
Mm.
America as a country, we do not, we have not acknowledged what we've done. We've not acknowledged it. We as a people, we've never received an apology.
Yeah.
We never received an acknowledgement that this was awful. And the reason why I think is because it's so hypocritical. How can you say that you're going around, trying to promote freedom and democracy when you didn't even promote it at home?
Yeah.
So you must show an example at home before anybody. Nobody's listening to America now because they feel they're a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
You can't come over here and tell us what to do. You didn't even do it yourself, and
So,
you're still not doing it.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's quite a few of us. I think 50% of us are starting to acknowledge that's not going to fly when you say, I didn't do it, my grandma did it.
Right.
But
Right.
you're still doing it, actually.
Right. Right.
Look at your life, and you're reaping the benefits of all the money grandma got.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't you must acknowledge that this is going on in your culture, and that we have a lot of work to do to heal. A lot.
I truly believe, and that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, is to be able to have these kinds of conversations, because the conversations aren't talked about. And in the beginning, when I was talking about my story of starting this podcast and my mentor telling me that I needed to come out of the whale, because I was Jonah and I was hiding from what I was really supposed to be doing. Well, part of the reason why I was hiding was because I was too afraid to talk about it, because so many of us, we would rather live in ignorance and be in an ignorant bliss than to really acknowledge the truth and to move beyond the truth. People would rather just stay ignorant and just say, oh, life is what it is, instead of us dealing with what really happened. And I truly believe that's the only way we're going to really be able to move beyond, is if we talk about what really happened and what's still happening. But people don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely. It's still happening, and we have to talk about it. We have to, and I think it's the one thing that prevents us from coming together like we should,
Yeah.
because you look at other cultures, example, the Jewish people, they talk about it every day. They
Yeah.
have it
Yeah.
everywhere. They're
Yeah.
not going to let anybody forget about
Forget.
it. Okay.
You better say that. You better say it, Miss Beverly.
Don't forget it. And
Mm.
so we need to do the same thing. But so many times we'll hear about somebody else's story and we cringe again. We want to get we're like ashamed of our story.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be ashamed of our story. We didn't do it.
Yeah.
We made it through. That's what
Right.
happened. What we
Right.
did.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't do that, but we made it through
Yeah.
miraculously and courageously and
Right.
wonderfully.
Yeah. You know what I just found out? This was just a few days ago. I have a really good friend of mine who is from Ghana, and we were talking about that very thing with African American people not being able to work together and us still, like, having not healed ourselves and things like that. Well, I didn't realize that when we talk about quote unquote Black people have a difficult time working together, I didn't realize that it was a global situation. Any place in the world where there's been colonization, there's this distance, within the Black community. And so in Ghana, I found out that also Black people in Ghana don't like to work together. Like when you think about other communities, like white
Mhm.
communities, the Jewish community, even the Latino community, how they stick together. I found out from my friend who's from Ghana that Ghanaians don't stick together like they should. They don't work, they don't trust each other. And that's sad to me. That's really sad to me.
Well, we don't want to go into the Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yes,
And
absolutely. Absolutely.
and how it's global. I mean, they pitted us against each other, and I'll never forget that when Willie Lynch said, if you would do these 6 or 7 things, it will perpetuate itself for hundreds of years. And it has. We don't trust each other because that was, we might have been trying to run away with Harriet Tubman, and we had to be careful who we talked about because somebody was going to go tell Master.
Yeah.
They were loyal. They taught us to be loyal to them, that we were a good person if we were loyal to them, and a bad person if we were not. And
Yeah.
that's ingrained in so many of us. Um, I'm thinking about Carter G. Woodson and the book he wrote, The Miseducation of the Negro. This was funny, but not funny.
Mm.
He said, we are so miseducated. They made us go through the back door for hundreds of years that now that we don't have to, we'll still go around back and make a door if we have to.
Wow.
Like just think about how people, we go in a place and we sit in the back.
We do.
I have
We
to
do.
admit, I go specifically, even though I might be comfortable, I go in the front because I can
Yeah.
and because
Yeah.
I'm honoring my ancestors. But so
Mm-hmm.
many of us, we're so ingrained, it's so ingrained of it, we still
Yeah.
go to the back. We still
Yeah.
take the back seat. We don't feel like we can take the front seat.
You know what that reminds me of, Miss Beverly? I taught at Kent State for 15 years. I was a professor of fashion. I was the first Black professor of fashion. And I noticed that my Black students, and I had very few Black students, but I noticed that every time they came in the classroom, they always sat in the back. So I remember one day after class, I asked them to stay back so that I can have a conversation with them. And I said, you ladies need to stop sitting in the back. You need to sit up in the front. And when it's time for us to go around and share our stories, you all need to be the first people to share your stories. Don't wait until the last. You're not the
Mhm.
last.
Right. Yes.
You are not the last. You need to
Yeah.
go first and tell and show your work and show your projects or whatever.
Yeah.
You are not sitting in the back anymore.
And did they receive it?
They did. They
That's
did.
wonderful.
They
That's
did. They
sometimes,
did.
yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even know, they don't even know they're doing it. It's
Yeah.
just
It's just by
automatic.
habit. Yeah. It's ingrained in
You
us.
have to practice, being the head and not the tail.
Well, see, for me, I think because I like, and I'm about to admit this, but I like being seen. I
That's
like
okay.
I like being seen. And so I'm going to always sit up in the front because
Storytellers like being seen too.
that's right. That's right. We want people to know that we are here.
That's right.
It's yes. And so I encourage any young person, any older person, whenever you go into a venue, don't sit in the back. Sit right up front so people can see you, so that you can let people know that you are there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
And you count and you matter and you have something to say and something to add
absolutely.
to the situation. Absolutely.
And even if you don't want to speak, your presence is
Mhm.
enough to say volumes. Your
Yes,
presence is enough.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So I'm
Hmm.
so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, we just need to do more of that. Absolutely.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And so, how can audiences stay connected? Oh, before I ask you that, I want to just give you the courtesy of bringing up anything that, like, if there was something you wanted to speak about that we didn't talk about, please, this is the time now. If you have anything that you would like to say.
I think we touched on it, but just to say to young people, you are powerful,
Yeah.
you are creative, and the world is waiting for you to chart your own path.
Yeah.
And you see so many young people doing it, and it's like amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like, when we were enslaved, we made a way out of no way.
Yeah.
All of our food, even though it's not that good for us, but greens, cornbread, sweet potato, all we made a way out of no way.
No way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember when these young people took some $1 glasses and put all kind of glitter and glam on, and next thing you know, they were selling those glasses for $50.
Mm.
I can't remember, it was two young ladies, and just the clothing lines and the all kind of the all kind of creative items that these young people are and businesses that these young people are coming up with.
Mhm. Yeah,
Technology, it is absolutely amazing. I love
it
it.
is. It is. And I admire them.
I
It's
do.
you know what it seems like to me, Miss Bev? It seems to me that they are much more braver than we once were.
Mm-hmm.
The bravery that I have now, it took me years to develop the bravery that I have. And it seems like our young people, they are just stepping out and with that bravery, like, it's automatically. And so I have two boys. And I try my best to let the boys know how important it is for them to speak their mind, and to say whatever is on their heart because they're very shy. And I told them, I said, mommy was shy when she was younger and she missed out on so many things because I was shy. Talk and tell people your story.
Mm-hmm.
Tell people
Mm-hmm.
that you are here because being shy does not serve you. It did not serve me when I
Right.
was a young person. It didn't serve me. And so what I admire about our young people is that they are not shy.
They are not shy.
They
In
get
fact,
out,
sometimes they're
yes. They're getting out here and they're doing it.
yes,
Yes.
they
Yes,
are.
they are. They
I
really
love
are.
it. I love it.
I
I
do
really
too.
do.
I do
Hmm.
too. And so how can audiences, like if there's someone on the podcast that is watching right now who is interested in wanting to learn more about the Cleveland Association of Black Storytellers, how can they find out more? And if they would like to join, how can they do so?
Well, they can just go to our website, which is clevestorytellers.org. CLEVE storytellers.org. clevestorytellers.org. You'll see everything there to join. And again, if you want tickets for the luncheon, call Jackie at 216-526-1275. Okay, but
Yeah.
you can look up our website and see that. And again, the Association of African American Cultural Gardens, their website is just aacg.org.
Mm,
I think you might be able to show them a flyer. We're
yeah.
having a wonderful Juneteenth
Yes.
celebration. Come on down and join us on June 19th from 12 to 4 at our beautiful garden that we have. It's
Mm.
just dedicated to African American culture.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. I wish I was going to be in town. I'm on tour right now with my book. I have a book called Black Hair in a White World.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I'm on tour with that book. I'll be in Durham, North Carolina for Juneteenth. So I hate that I'm not going to be there because I would love to come and
Well, you could come
just,
another time.
yeah,
I just left
yeah.
Raleigh. I was just in Raleigh.
Okay, nice. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Stories
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I'm excited to go down and to share the story about Black hair culture and how critically important it is for us to continue to talk about those kinds of things because we are still heavily impacted by what's happening in Black beauty culture. But we are going to end this episode a little bit differently than what we typically do. As you all know, I'm an educator and researcher, and I typically will dive into a little bit of the research that went into preparing myself for the episode. But because we have Miss Bev on and she is a storyteller, I asked her if she wouldn't mind closing out the podcast today with the story. So I am going to step out and I'm going to give Miss Bev the stage and allow her um, to give us a beautiful way to end this story and to take us into the Juneteenth season in style. I give all the space and blessings to you, Miss Griot. Do you go by is it okay for people to call you Griot? Is that
Yes,
okay?
it
Yes,
is.
yes,
Mama Awan.
yes, yes, yes. So Mama Awan, I give you the stage. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you.
It's story time. This story took place in the Congo many years ago. A woman and a man that loved each other for a long, long time came together as man and wife. The village was so happy for them that they built them a beautiful house. It had a roof of bright green leaves. The two of them were very happy. But one morning, they were in a bad mood. They started arguing. They started yelling. They became so angry that they forgot many things. They forgot that they had spent a great many days laughing and talking together under the trees. They forgot they were in love. They forgot that they were husband and wife forever. The husband got so angry with the arguing that he ran out of the house. Once he got outside, he put his hands on the first thing he saw, which were the leaves on the roof. He began to tear those leaves down. He had forgotten that when you tear off all the leaves on your roof, it means I divorce you and we no longer live under the same roof. Well, the wife came outside, and as she watched her husband pull the leaves off of the house, she saw how angry he was, and she remembered how sweet he could be. But he was pulling those leaves off of the tree, and she started to say something, but the neighbors came out, and they were looking. And she said, "Oh, if I say something, they're going to think I started the argument. I will be quiet and let my husband speak." So the husband kept pulling the leaves off of the tree. And then he looked around and saw that his wife had come out to look at him and that all the neighbors were there. And he thought, "Oh, I have to keep pulling the leaves because if I stop, they're going to think I'm the cause of this argument. And I will just keep pulling leaves until my wife says something." Well, the villagers looked at the husband, looked at the wife, looked back at each other. They felt very sad because they knew they loved each other. But he kept pulling the leaves off of the tree, and everybody got silent because it was known you do not interfere between a woman and a man in their marriage. And so suddenly the wife said, "Husband, that's enough. These are the dirty leaves. You can leave those up there. We'll take the dirty leaves down to the river and wash them." The husband was confused. He didn't know what to do. And she said, "Husband, I said, these are the dirty leaves. Those are fine. Let's take the dirty leaves down to the river." And she didn't even look back to see if he was paying attention to her. She picked up the leaves and began to walk.
Miss Bev, can you hear me? Miss Bev, can you hear me? Oh no. Technology is not our friend today.